This episode is very sound heavy. Headphones are encouraged.
The White Road. The White Road to Tuva by Morgan Olson. Once Upon a Tall Tale. Season 0. Episode 8. The bombs fell in winter, and in that alone lay their mercy, for winter was a thing the far north already knew how to survive. The Kremlin fell as great hollow buildings fall, loud, theatrical, and in the end beside the point. What came after was not chaos. Chaos would have meant that someone was surprised. This was quieter than that. Systems that had spent decades merely pretending to exist simply ceased. The way a man stops pretending he is not tired and sits down in the snow. What remained was a thin and meager world, pockets of warmth, pockets of memory, and a great many roads that no longer agreed among themselves on where they went. The Finn lived far enough north that the end of the world reached him politely. The radio hissed to static and stayed there. The supply truck did not come, and did not come again. And after the third week, he stopped walking out to the road to look. The reindeer still wanted moving. That much the apocalypse had not touched. He had never asked much of the world, and had spent 30 years arranging his life so the world would agree to the arrangement. By his own reckoning, he had done well enough. Then the Russian came up the valley with papers. Poor papers, unconvincing papers, papers that had once meant something, which is occasionally enough. He was careful in the way of men who have spent their lives in rooms where the wrong sentence carried consequences. He stood so, even now, not stiffly, but measured, weighing each word before he let it go free. There is a place, he said, east, past where the maps still agree among themselves on anything. He spoke the name the way one passes from hand to hand a thing one is not certain one has the right to give away. Tuva. The Finn looked up from the herd for the first time. That is not a city. No, it is older than cities. The papers, it transpired, were only the cover of the thing, a dead government's seal upon a dead government's form, sufficient that whatever tired men still stood at whatever remained of the checkpoints would wave it through. He set them aside, almost apologetically. The true article he had kept against his chest and brought out last. It was old, folded so many times the creases had gone soft as cloth, and worn thin at the edges where 100 years of hands had turned it over. He opened it as one opens a thing for which there can be no replacement. 2 columns of writing ran the length of the page, one in Russian, the other in a tongue the Russian himself could not read. The same words twice, set down by 2 different dead men's hands. The Finn read his half before he had decided to. He had not known he still could. His grandmother had owned a handful of words for the East which she had never explained and had never been permitted to speak aloud, and here they were upon this page, in a stranger's keeping. Where did you come by this? It was my great-great-grandfather's, Artur Edvard. The Russian said the name carefully, as one handles a thing that belongs to more people than oneself. He wrote it for whoever remained in the north when the family came apart. That is you, I think. What is left of you. He let the Finn hold it. He says there is ground in the east that is ours still. Taiga above the rivers, where the dear summer, Our cousins hold it. He says they will go on holding it after him. That was a long time ago. Yes. They may all be dead by now. Yes. The Russian did not look away from the page. He makes no promise that it is safe. He says it is hard country and that he will not lie to me about that. He says it will hold us. That is his very word, not protect. Hold. The Finn looked long at the page. Near the bottom, in both hands at once, the same line ran twice. The road is long, and the road is white, and it alone leads home. How far? He said. I do not know. The road will decide. The matter was simple, in the way that only impossible things are simple once spoken aloud. Drive the herd east, keep them breathing, bring them to ground that still remembered what reindeer were for. The name mattered less than the direction, the one thing the Russian said that the Finn believed entirely. The Finn said no, politely, properly, as one says no when the world has ended and refusal is the last lever a hand still has hold of. The Russian did not argue. He threatened nothing and promised nothing so foolish as safety. He folded the letter back along its soft creases, held it out, and left the cold, and the herd, and the thing written in two hands to do the work that argument could not. In the end, it was neither the man who decided it nor the herd, though the deer had been uneasy for days, and he had been calling it nothing. It was the handwriting that decided. A dead man, 4 generations gone, had set down the same words twice so that neither half of his family should lose the way home. And such a thing is either nothing whatsoever, or it is the only thing left that means anything at all, and the Finn found he could not make himself believe it nothing. He chose the other belief. One takes what the road gives and calls it a gift, because to call it nothing is how a man goes under. They left before he could think better of it. The Finn took one last look at the land against which he had built his whole life, and said softly, to no one, but heard by the crows. The word went out over the snow and did not return. The reindeer were already moving. The first days were honest ones, a cold that pretended to be nothing but cold. They made good time. The Russian kept pace and did not complain, which the Finn marked and did not remark upon. On the 4th night, the vodka gave out, and the Russian produced a second bottle from his pack. You had 2. I am an optimist. They drank by a fire too small to do much good, and warmer for being small. The Russian poured without asking, which was right. The Finn drank without thanking him, which was right also. You knew, the Finn said, before you came to me, how bad it was. The Russian watched the fire a while. Bad enough to come to you. The bombs, all of it. Most of it. The Finn drank. You ought to have told me. You would have said no. I said no regardless. And then you said yes. The Russian shrugged. So. The Finn very nearly smiled. It was not a warm thing, but it was a true one, but heard by the crows. Yes, the Russian agreed. Exactly that. They finished the bottle and spoke no further of the end of the world. The cold was already saying all there was to say of it. The road never announced itself. It was simply what remained when the other paths had given up. Packed snow, old migration lines, a seam in the country running thinner than the land to either side. They walked, and the days lost their edges. Time ceased to be a number and became weather. The Russian had been a man of tallies, distances, rations, the days behind and the days ahead. At first he kept count from habit, the way a tongue returns to a tooth already gone. Somewhere in the second week, he found he had lost the thread of his counting and did not mind the loss. He let it go. They passed through towns where no one raised a hand to them, and fires still warm beside which no one sat. Once they came upon a road sign, the name upon it scratched away, a second name set below it in charcoal. That one scratched away in turn, and beneath it only an arrow pointing both directions at once, as though the land itself no longer knew what to call itself. It was not all omen. A lashing on the sledge rotted through, and the Russians spent a whole morning splicing it with fingers too cold to bend, swearing in a tongue the Finn did not own but understood entirely. 4 days running they ate the same boiled grain, until the Finn could no longer taste it, and the Russian could taste nothing else. A river with no business being open was open, and they lost half a day walking upstream to a narrow place, and the Russian went into the knee crossing it, and they made an early camp to dry his boot over a fire that would not catch. No one said anything wise about any of it. It was bad, and then it was past, and they went on. The Russian spoke less, the further they went. He had been a man who filled silence as his trade, gathered it, sorted it, laid it by where it might serve later. Now there was no one left to file it for, and in time the silence ceased to feel like an absence, and began to feel like a room. At an abandoned homestead, the Finn came in and found him at the writing desk, going through the drawers, quick, practiced, with hands that knew exactly how a drawer gives up what is taped beneath it. The Russian stopped when he marked he was watched. He looked at his own hands as though they belonged to a man he once had known. "Habit," he said. "Find anything?" "No, there is never anything there. There never was." He pushed the drawer to. That was always the joke of it. Storms came at them sideways. A reindeer went lame, and they carried it in turns, and did not discuss the arrangement, for there was nothing in it to discuss. The Russian's hands blistered and healed and blistered again. He never spoke of it. The Finn saw and held his own tongue too. He saw the boots as well. The Russian slept in them, every night, laced, like a man who expected to be roused and made to answer for himself. In all those weeks the Finn never once saw his bare feet. He took it for a soldier's habit and let it be, as he let most things be. The land had begun to change by then, though neither spoke of it for a long while, as one does not name a fever until certain of it. Color crept into the snow at the day's edges. The wind took up a note it had not carried before. Not warmer, precisely, but purposeful. And then the flags. Scraps of cloth knotted to branches and to poles along the ridgelines. Blue, white, red, green, and gold. Frayed soft, old enough to belong to the place. Not warnings, not boundaries, only color, speaking to something that had no need of a roof. The Finn stopped and looked at them a long while. "You know what those are," the Russian said. "I know what they are for." He could not have told how he knew it. It rose in him like a word in a tongue he had never been taught, and owned nonetheless. Speaking to something that does not keep itself inside a building. The Russian thought of buildings, and of what had been kept inside them, and what the keeping had cost. That sounds about right. That night the road forked, and the Russian dreamed. It came upon him in numbers first, as it always did. Coordinates, yields, the dead arithmetic he had carried 30 years. Then the numbers fell away like ash, and beneath them was a circus. A grand one, of the kind the old state had once built to prove that grace was only discipline applied early enough. A man went out upon the high wire, easy, 1,000 crossings already in his legs, and fell. No grace in it, struck the net wrong, came to rest in a heap over which the whole tent held its breath. The lion tamer came out from the wings, not angry, only dutiful. He made a small sign, and 2 attendants lifted the fallen man, neither roughly nor gently, and bore him to the edge of the cage. No one in the crowd rose. The lion turned its head, not toward the man on the ground, but toward the Russian, toward his place in the dark, and its eyes were the very blue and gold of the flags upon the ridge. He woke with it still upon him. The Finn was already standing, looking at the 2 paths where the road divided. One bent west, downhill, toward easier ground and the promise of shelter. One held east, through country that offered nothing but the certainty of direction. "Do not take the western road," the Russian said. His voice was not yet his own, still half in the tent. "Something is wrong with the easy one. I saw it." "You dreamed it." "Yes. It is a dream." The Finn said this as one says a thing one half believes and cannot afford to. He felt the wrongness of the western path himself, felt it in his teeth, and trusted the feeling no more than he trusted anything of that kind. For trusting it was a door his people had nailed shut 3 generations past, in a country to the south, by men with a cross and a list of names. He turned from the dream as he had been raised to. "We will decide by daylight." They made camp at the fork. That was decision enough. In the night, a single reindeer took the western path of its own accord. It went perhaps half a verst before the slope gave way beneath it. The Finn heard it go. He lay still in the dark and did not rise, and in the morning the herd was 1 short, and the western path stood quiet in that settled, finished silence of ground that has taken something for its own. The Russian regarded him across the dead fire. He did not say, "I told you so." He had no need. "It went so that we should not," the Finn said, testing whether he could make himself believe it. "No," the Russian said, gentle for once. "It went because you did not hear me. The deer only stepped into the gap where the hearing ought to have been." He rose, slowly, his boots already on. "You will hear it in time. Every man of your blood hears it in time. Only the longer one waits, the more it costs." They broke camp before light and took the eastern road. Neither spoke for a long while. The Finn carried the absence of the dead deer as one carries a thing one might have prevented. That is to say, everywhere. After that, the land ceased to pretend it was the land they had left behind. The cold loosened its grip by degrees. Grass showed through the snow where grass had no business showing. The flags came more often, then without pause, strung between low dwellings that sat in the valleys ahead as though they had grown there of themselves. And somewhere in among it all, a hum began. Beneath everything, scarcely a sound at all, more a pressure upon the chest than a thing the ear could hold. And 2 days short of that place, so near that the Finn could feel the roads ending as one feels a held breath about to break, the Russian did not wake. He had gone in the night. No sound had reached the Finn, who slept lightly. He was already cold when the Finn found him. The fire was not. The Finn sat with it a long while. There was no one to tell, and the cold was already saying all that needed saying. He had half expected it, he understood now, as one half expects the thing one has refused to look upon directly. The Russian had been spending something the whole road that did not come back. The reckoning had simply come due 2 days short of the door. He built the fire higher, for the dead man would have wanted the warmth even now, and it was a foolish thought, and he thought it all the same. That night, the Russian returned, not as a spirit, as himself, across a fire that was not there, looking better than he had since the river, the gray gone out of his face. The Finn knew he was dreaming, and knew, in the same breath, that this was the truest thing to have happened to him in many weeks, and felt no contradiction in it. The door his people had nailed shut stood open at last, 2 days from home. The first thing he marked were the Russian's feet, bare, pale and bare upon snow that, in the dream, was not cold. The toes spread as a man spread who stands upon summer grass. "Your boots," the Finn said. The Russian looked down at his own feet, and something crossed his face the Finn had never once seen there before. "Ah," he said, "those." He worked his toes, deliberately, with pleasure. "The first day of my service my feet pained me, the very first day, and every day after for 30 years. By the end of the first week I had reckoned that not one other man complained of it, not one, and resolved that neither would I." He raised his eyes. 30 years, and I never spoke one word of my feet to a living soul. And then he laughed. It rose out of him enormous, helpless, and bright. A laugh with 30 years of swallowed complaint behind it. A laugh like a dam giving way. The Russian, careful, dutiful, measured to the very syllable, bent double with it, gasping, wiping his eyes, and the Finn stood there entirely undone, for in all those weeks he had never once imagined such a sound could live inside the man. "I will not," the Russian managed, "wear these God-forsaken boots in death as well. I shall go barefoot into whatever comes after, and I shall complain of everything in it." The Finn found he was nearly laughing himself, around something that was grief as well. The Russian settled, wiped his face, looked upon the Finn with a tenderness the daylight man would never have permitted himself. "You hear me now," he said. "Imagine that. It wanted my dying to make you listen to what your own people have been telling you the whole road long." This was said without bitterness, nearly with pride. 2 days, that is all that remains. Walk them. I will carry you the rest of the... You will carry nothing of the kind. Leave the body to the land. The land knows what is to be done with the body. It is the one thing it has never forgotten. He was already turning, already growing lighter, already going. "I will go on ahead. I will tell them you are coming." Tell whom? But the fire that was not there had gone to nothing, and the Russian with it. And the Finn woke in the dark with his face wet, the herd breathing close about him, and for the first time in his life, a dream he could not reason himself out of. No. He walked the last 2 days alone, and they were the first 2 days he had ever truly walked. The dreams came to him now, whether he slept or no. He saw Artur Edvard, the grandfather who had written the letter, whose hand had set down the same words twice, in 2 tongues, that neither half of the family should lose them. He saw the road behind him not as snow but as a white thread the whole line had been paying out for 100 years, that someone, someday, might find the way back along it. He understood, walking, that the deer his family had once herded, the deer that could not be fenced, at which the careful neighbors with their pigs and their sheep had laughed, that fared better for never being fenced at all, had been the truest thing they carried out of the old country, and the first thing the new country had tried to take from them. The reindeer walked easily now. They knew the ground or wanted it. Nothing led them. On the second evening he began, without deciding to hum, a low note, and above it, riding within it, a second, higher, caught in the same breath. It cracked from him and slipped away, and he lost it, and found it again. It did not come easily. It was the most familiar thing he had ever done. His grandmother had owned the shape of that sound, and had never once been permitted to use it. And here it was, alive in his own throat, hard-won, and exactly like kin. He came over the last ridge, and the valley opened before him, and it did not open as valleys open. Color rose up out of it. Not weather, not the brief arc of bent light that comes and goes upon its season, but a thing that had settled and meant to remain. The 5 colors of the flags lifted from their lines and laid across the whole of the sky, a roof of them, a hall of them, blue, white, red, green, and gold, arching down to a low dwelling where no dwelling had cause to stand, and light moving about it that owed nothing to the sun. A palace roofed in sky. The hum here was enormous and had taken shape. 2 notes in a single throat, the high one riding the low. The very sound he had only just learned returned to him 1,000-fold. The family's voice at the far end of the road, answering the small, cracked likeness of it in his own breast. It was not paradise. He could see that even now, even seeing as he had at last learned to see. Those who came out to him were thin, and there were not many, and the country behind them was as hard as the letter had promised. The land would hold them. It would not keep them from dying. The Russian, 2 days behind, stood proof of that, and the proof did not break the radiance. It dwelt within the radiance, as a true thing dwells within it. But they came out to meet him, his cousins, his far blood, the eastern half of a family the century had cut in 2. And among them, where the color came down to the earth, stood Artur Edvard, who had written the letter with 2 hands, and beside him, barefoot upon the impossible grass, complaining cheerfully to whoever would listen, stood the Russian, home before him, exactly as he had promised, telling them all that the Finn was coming. The reindeer did not wait to be led in. They went toward the unfenced ground as water goes downhill, certain and glad of it, and the Finn followed his herd down into the valley as his family had been trying to walk for 100 years. Behind him the ended world remained ended. The dead radios stayed silent. None of it was mended, and none of it ever would be. Ahead, the hum held its 2 notes and did not let go, and the man with the bad feet and the good laugh waited in the rainbow beside his grandfather, barefoot at last. And the road was white, and it alone led home.